This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you by Bitrefill. Bitrefill is the best way to spend your crypto in Latin America. Purchase gift cards or mobile refills from more than 3,500 brands in 186 countries instantly, safely, and privately. Visit bitrefill.com for more information. Welcome back to the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. My guest today is Shelley Marmor from Travel Mexico Solo, Travel Blogging 101, and a host of other websites that she runs, but she's most famous for Travel Mexico Solo. So Shelley, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I first heard about you listening to a random podcast episode on the Side Hustle Show of hosted by Nick Loper, and you were episode 573, and it was called "How I Grew My Hobby Travel Blog to 50K Months." And I was like, "What?" So I had to listen to that one, and then kind of got into your story about traveling Mexico as a solo female and everything. And I was like, "Great, I need to get in touch with this lady." And you're not really on Twitter. You're big on other platforms, but you're not on Twitter. So maybe a lot of my audience doesn't know you because my audience is primarily Twitter. Um, but I reached out to you on your website on like the contact page, which I don't do very often for guests, but I'm glad we were able to do it and get connected.
Yeah, I believe it's called, I might not be a Twitter user, but I believe it's called X.
Yep.
No, I do not have X. Actually, I don't do any social media. I have an old Instagram page, but I don't think it's been used for a couple years now. So yeah, I also grew the blog without social media. So, I mean, that's really like the wow moment. Yeah, the money's cool. The money's also a wow moment. But like, usually people are like, how did you ever do this without social?
Pure SEO.
Pure SEO. You got it.
Cool. I think maybe we'll get into making money with travel blogging and stuff in the second half of the podcast. You have another site called Travel Blogging 101 where I guess you teach people how to start travel blogs and monetize travel, which is great. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are travelers and would be interested in monetizing a piece of that. Before we get into that, would love to just hear a bit more about your story, about Mexico, and all that fun stuff.
So I moved to Mexico. Well, I first came to Mexico in April 2020. It just kind of like life just kind of worked out this way where I was laid off from a job. Um, Decided I was going to do a whole big life change, and I sold my condo, and I decided I was going to move to Denver, Colorado from South Florida. And then, like, the buyer threw a huge monkey wrench in my plans and was like, I really like the way you have your house decorated. And I'm like a recently divorced guy, and I'm never going to make it as nice as you. So, can I just buy all your furniture and everything you own? And I was like, what? So I said, okay. And now I was apartmentless, jobless, stuffless. And I had another friend who was also not working at the time, and he had some savings. So he was like, why don't we just go travel for a while? And, it's not often that you have money and time at the same time. So I said, okay. And I was like, how about Croatia? And he's like, how about Mexico? And I was like, why would we go there? It's like super dangerous. So I was definitely like brainwashed in the same way that other people were maybe brainwashed. So I'm always sympathetic with those people who are like, isn't it dangerous there? Whereas like a lot of people, especially bloggers, will be like, are you joking? Don't you know America's dangerous? I'm not that way because I totally was like, yeah, Mexico's dangerous, right? I heard it on the news. So I said I would go with him just because it wasn't like in the cards for me to travel solo. We ended up in Mexico City, and I fell in love at first sight, and basically never left Mexico. I'm coming up on, I guess, 5.5 years at the time of us recording. So Mexico kind of picked me.
5.5 years?
Yeah, April 2018.
Oh,
I might have said
2018.
20.
You
I
did
might
say
have said 20
2020.
because that's when I started the blog. So when I'm telling these stories now, like the starting of the blog. Okay, I came in April 2018. Yes, and it is now November 2023.
So been
So
full time in Mexico for over 5 years.
yeah, that was totally my fault saying the wrong year. But yes,
No worries. So
2018
are you
April.
calling in from Mexico now?
I'm in Mexico City again. Talk about a full circle moment. I am building a house. I have bought property, and my house is being built on the
No
coast of
way.
Oaxaca. Yeah.
No
Yep.
way.
So now, like my boyfriend and I, are kind of just bouncing around a little bit. The house should be done. Hopefully, I don't even want to say when the house should be done because it keeps getting pushed back. But early 2024 is hopefully when the house is going to be
That's cool.
for sure move-in ready and done. But yeah, so I'm in Mexico City at the moment, but we're leaving in a week. We're going to San Luis Potosi state, and then we're going to spend some time in Guadalajara um, for like the Christmas and New Year's holiday, and then hopefully my house is going to be done.
Interesting. Random question. Do you know Cashley Kucherin from traveloffpath.com?
I've never met her, but like we're definitely friends of friends. And she just spoke at a travel blogging conference hosted by my very first travel blogging teacher. So we're kind of like moving in the same circles. So I,
Yeah, she just moved to Mexico City, so she's there now. So I could maybe
oh,
get you guys connected.
I would love that. I did not know she was there. That's so funny because I have the digital access to that conference. I wasn't able to attend, and I just listened to her talk at that. So anyway, small world. But yeah, I would love
Who's the
that.
mentor? Who's the
Her
mentor?
name is Laura. She runs Scale Your Travel Blog. It's
Huh.
a travel blog coaching program, but she used to do full one on one, and she hasn't done that in a while. But there's a course.
She
But I
scaled.
worked. She scaled. Yeah.
Laura, scale your travel blog. Okay, cool, cool. Hopefully, I'm gonna get glean a lot of
Shout out to
tips
Laura.
on this. Mike and Laura travel.
Yeah, that's their actual travel blog. But I think the focus has definitely shifted to
Laura
the teaching
Peters.
side.
Okay, awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. And was this Travel Mexico solo blog your first endeavor into niche sites and travel blogging?
Yes, I do like to say that I have a degree in journalism and I worked in the travel industry for nearly a decade at my last quote unquote real job. I worked for a Miami travel magazine
Hmm.
where I'm from in South Florida. So I did have that background, but I had never blogged before. I actually didn't even really read blogs. So it was kind of funny. It was actually my travel buddy who I traveled with to Mexico initially in 2018. He was the one that was like finding cool stuff for us to do all the time. And I'm like, how are you finding this? He's like, blogs. And I'm like, what? Like, because most of my traveling had been to like meet up with friends. So I was with a local. So I was never like, let me go to the blogs. So anyway, it was my first blog, my first time actually paying attention to blogs. I
Hmm.
felt like a literal true first timer, but I did have some background in other things that maybe like led me to travel blogging for sure.
Okay, cool. And now, how many sites are you running? So you started with Travel Mexico Solo.
Mhm.
In the Side Hustle podcast that I listened, you mentioned that you started one for Oaxaca as well.
Yeah, I have a Oaxaca site, Tulum site, the Mexico site, and what else do I have? Merida, Mexico site. I lived there for a couple years. Is that it? 4 travel blogs and the blog about blogging. That's I have those 5.
Five. Okay, cool. And you have more than that as well for other stuff or something?
No, it's just the 4 travel blogs, and then the blog about blogging is the 5th and newest one.
Okay, cool, cool. Yeah, it's going to be hard for me to keep this in like a cohesive order. I feel like we're going to bounce around a lot on this episode, but hopefully this will have some sort of linear sense to the audience. But it's a very interesting thing you did in terms of splitting things up into separate blogs. And I did hear you address this question a little bit on the previous podcast, but I think worth asking again, where I believe your response was like, I know someone is going to make a Oaxaca website. So it might as well be me.
Yeah, so the first site I started, and I did not have the success I had on my own or by magic or by even like insane amounts of hard work. It was by hiring coaches and paying for courses. So my first site took off faster than a lot of people's. And after the first site took off, I was like, I'm going to make a second site about the city Merida, where I was living at the time in the Yucatan Peninsula. My intention was to start a tour company and partner with local tour operators. It
Hmm.
never panned out that way, but I was able to grow that niche site 10 times as fast as I was able to grow the first site. Of course, now I had information and methodologies that I didn't have. So it's not necessarily an apples to apples. But the riches are in the niches, as they say. And I just kept making more and more sites. I'm able to grow the sites pretty fast. And now I have 3 sites that are on with a premium ad network, which is called Mediavine. So when people are like, how do you make money with the blog? I'm like, there's a lot of ways to make money with the blog. But the most true passive income that I have is just the ads on the site. So 3 out of my 5 sites are on with a premium ad network where I literally earning
And does
money.
each site have to scale up individually to the minimum, or can you share that visitor count from the previous sites?
No, it's 50,000 sessions, which a
Uh huh.
session is essentially a user in a
Uh huh.
30-day period to get onto
Uh huh.
Mediavine. They do have this program where if you're doing 6 figures and above, they will let other sites on at 25,000 sessions instead of 50. And I love Mediavine, but I did not love this. My at the highest months of my they look at a 12-year period, and if you hit 6 figures in a 12-month period, excuse me, if you hit that six
6 figures of
figures
sessions
in earnings,
in
if you have
earnings.
six
Okay.
figures in Mediavine earnings in a 12-month period, they will let your sites on at 25,000.
Your new sites, you mean?
Additional sites,
Okay.
exactly,
Okay.
instead of the 50,000.
Kind of
And I
makes
was
sense.
literally about $175 away from 6 figures at my highest earnings.
Uh,
And they said, no, let us know when you hit 6. And I was like, okay. So a little disappointed in that response, but overall, a great company. But yeah, I'm
so you have to
currently,
scale up every site individually. And so what do you do till you get there? Because my site, mylatinlife.com, is just on the Google ads, and it basically sucks in a lot of ways, right? And
yeah.
so I'm kind of like debating if it's even worth investing in all the articles and stuff that you would need to get it from the sessions that it's at to the 50K to get it on Mediavine.
Um, is it worth it? I don't know. Impossible for me to answer that question. Like too many factors, but that's my strength is SEO. So, for example, I got the second site on at about I think it was only 5 months that I got the second site on. The third site was about 9 months. I think it might have
Because
been
you have to get to
10
50K from scratch.
from zero. Yeah, from
Okay.
zero.
Okay.
It's but there's other ways to get traffic. Like if you have a budget, you can buy Facebook ads, for example. Like you don't have to go the SEO route. That's a much slower burn.
Right.
Um, but there's other ways to do it. A lot of people are doing Pinterest these days. Again, Pinterest kind of fell off for a time, and I think it's coming back now.
Oh yeah.
There's other ways that are not SEO, but for me, it was a valuable skill to learn, let's say, and now I can pretty easily duplicate and replicate it. So my fourth site is about halfway, and it's 4 months, six. I'm not sure, four or
And
six
this is the
months old.
Tulum site.
Yeah, and it's about halfway. So,
Okay.
and then, again, like it's the truest form of passive income to have the ads. But there's a world of difference of like Google, what is it, Google AdSense to like, which is like no traffic minimum and things like that, um, versus Mediavine, which takes some time. But I always tell people like no traffic, no ad income, right? So I'm getting paid by the traffic. So when you're
Hmm.
signing up to Google, like when you say Google sucks, Google AdWords sucks, or Google AdSense sucks, it's because not a lot of traffic, not a lot of ad income. That's definitely proportional there. So for me, I wait until they do get onto Mediavine because that's where the money is. Ads can slow down your site. make for user experience that people hate. So for me, it's a wait until then. But other people go all kinds of different routes, like maybe like you going onto Google. Ezoic is another one, but they
Hmm.
don't have a traffic minimum.
Oh, do they not? Yeah, I guess not. I guess we really went into the direction of talking about blogging strategies and stuff early in the episode. I did kind of want to give you a sec to talk about, what it's like to, be a female solo traveler in Mexico, and to talk about, just life in Mexico as an expat. And then maybe we can come back to me badgering you about SEO and stuff like
Free
that.
SEO advice. uh, okay, so moving to Mexico. Um, yeah, like I said, I had my eyes set on Croatia and the Mediterranean, and my friend was like, "Let's go to Mexico," and I was like, "You sure, buddy?" Um, so anyway, came to Mexico. Like I said, I was just completely like in love, and I'm not even really a city person, so it kind of just like I always just say Mexico chose me. But eventually, after 4 months, so we had lived in Mexico City and then we went over to Playa del Carmen for 2 months as well. 2 months in the
Hmm.
city, 2 months in Playa. He was like, he decided to take a job and go back to Miami. And I was like, I felt comfortable enough at that point to just stay. So I did. And then I traveled around a lot. I've been to 19 states now. I'll be going out of 32, going to my 20th in a few days.
San Luis
Um,
Potosi.
yeah, that will be my 20th state.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, I've been to 19 now. And that was what led me to start the blog. So it's called Travel Mexico Solo. And it was really, I thought I was going to be like talking about me traveling Mexico and my adventures. Like I'm like some Jack Kerouac or something. And like, it just kind of morphed into like a Mexico travel site instead of a solo travel site. But yeah, I spent a year by myself, traveling around. On buses, on planes, like going to smaller towns, going to big cities, beaches, as many places as I could. I don't want to say that like I'm very cautious to be like Mexico's super safe and a great place for like solo travel. All I can say is that it was for me. I'm from a big city. I kind of had that like thinking in mind. I'm not like, "Oh, I'm here and everything's great and I'm on vacation now and I can just mentally check out." Like no, you have to be aware of yourself, you have to be aware of your surroundings.
Hmm.
Safety is not a given. You can be in Iceland, like the quote unquote safest country in the world, and like, putting your guard down, I just think is the wrong approach, period.
Hmm.
So I always say it was like, it was safe for me. I think it would be safe for other like big city people. Like if you're coming from San Francisco and you're by yourself, even if it's your first time solo, I think you'd be fine. If you're from like rural Nebraska and you've never left the U.S. and you don't speak a word of Spanish, and maybe this isn't the place for your first time solo travel. But it's for me, it was like an amazing experience. I truly just was in love with Mexico. Slower pace of life, obviously the food. Central Mexico weather, they have what's called like the eternal spring climate. So it's
So
pretty
good.
much perfect weather year round. There are earthquakes, which scare the whatever out of me as a South Floridian from the flatlands where we do not have earthquakes. I will probably never get used to earthquakes. But, the history, the people are super friendly. Back then, there were not like, it was pre pandemic and there was not the amount of expats and people doing, the digital nomad thing living here. So,
Hmm.
like, there was a time when I was like super cool and very exotic in Mexico.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
days are slowly going going away or quickly going away,
If
maybe.
you had to estimate, what do you think it like 10x post pandemic, 5x?
It depends on the area, really. So Mexico City feels like 50x. um,
Yeah.
I know because a lot of people need the infrastructure of a bigger city, and a lot of people who kind of commute back and forth, let's say between U.S., Canada to Mexico, need the big international airport here. I feel like some places aren't quite that much, but I from going to places in 2018 to going to places post pandemic, it almost feels like different cities sometimes, for sure. Like,
Hmm.
I dated a guy in Oaxaca because we were like the only gringos. Like, we just were like, hey, I'm like, blonde hair, what is that? Like, we, like, there were no other, this was like kind of in like a rural beach town in Oaxaca on the coast. Like, we just ended up kind of like, I think, okay, like meeting up because we were the only like Americans there. We had that in common. But that I just then I was in Puerto Escondido, maybe 4 months ago, 5 months ago, and it's just like, it's just hearing English everywhere and the whole thing. And so I think it depends on the place. The bigger cities almost feel like I'm going to new places entirely.
Interesting. Yeah, my I had a I'll just say it. This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you by Language Blend, the new best way to learn Spanish. Language Blend focuses on what you actually need to live and get by abroad with daily one-on-one lessons, a dedicated texting partner. It's like living in a Spanish-speaking country without ever leaving home. Go to languageblend.com for more information. Wanted to come visit me in Mexico, and she was like, I want to go to Mexico City first and solo travel for a week or two, and then I'll come to where you're at. Is it safe for me? Maybe she got inspired from your blog. Who knows? And I was thinking about it, and I was like, no, just come to where I am, like right away. Because I was thinking about it, I was like, I don't know, like with the hostels aren't all that safe, and like I don't know, like the Ubers and I just like everything about it. Like I know Mexico very well. I'm in Mexico right now, um, but I don't. I really wouldn't tell my sister that it's okay to solo travel in Mexico as someone who doesn't speak Spanish.
Yeah, I pretty much never tell anyone to do it. I I don't, I would have to know you to tell you like my honest opinion. Otherwise, I'm
Hmm.
just saying words. So I'm not that like blogger. Like, yes, it's 100% safe. Are you crazy? Of course it's I don't think anywhere's safe. Like, especially as like a female, like I have a lot of concerns and like, I'm like, you look over your shoulder. I think you're crazy not to. So I think there's a balance between enjoying yourself and being smart. But like this, Mexico City, any big city on earth is not the place for you if you're really looking for an all inclusive style vacation where you just come, put your bags down, walk from your room to a pool, someone brings you food, you take a nap, you go, like, if that's what you want, like, I don't think a big city is necessarily that place
Right.
anywhere on earth. But I also think it's like the like safety starts being compromised like the second you start taking it for granted. And I just can't, like, how would I know to tell a stranger like you're totally fine? Like I said, like, I'm from a big city, like these kind of things aren't ingrained in me in a way that they're not ingrained in someone from small town Iowa. Like, safety was a fact of life for you. Like, safety for me was something that like I had to be proactive about. So I don't know. It's a tricky subject. And that's why for me, I'm just like, no, I can't tell you that you're gonna. No one can
Hmm.
guarantee that. So
Right. I
I'm
mean,
pretty
most people
clear.
are obviously fine. Like
Of course, that's the other
most.
side of it.
Yeah. And
That's
like
definitely the
nothing
other
really
side.
happens, but still things. The thing about Mexico is like weird stuff happens in Mexico.
Dude, I'm from Miami. Like, you can't tell me that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not the best person to like tell you. Yeah, weird shit was a given. Ooh, I don't know if I can say that word.
It's fine. It's
Weird
fine.
stuff was a given for me. Like, it's not the few and far between. It's like a Tuesday. So I'm
Yeah.
not maybe, but also like that applies to someone from New York City maybe, or San Francisco maybe, or other big cities on the earth maybe. And also like I'm very used to like a more overt Latin culture than someone, from other parts of the US or Canada or wherever you're coming from. I'm used to a more like extroverted, culture, being growing up around so many Latin people. So It's just
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
like
like
a
a it's not
unanswerable
cut and
question.
dry. Exactly. It's
Yeah,
not cut and
yeah.
dry. So I'd rather say maybe not. Like, there's like 193 countries on the earth. There are other ones. I don't think you should be like, Mexico's unsafe, but I'm going anyway. Like, just go to one where you feel safe. Like, you have that option too.
Hmm. So Oaxaca, building a house down there, pretty cool. You're basically taking the next step. Is this your first time buying property in Mexico?
Yeah, I'm a first timer.
What's that experience been like?
Yeah, like someone emailed me and they were like, tell me everything about buying in Mexico. And I was like, I don't know. You get a realtor, they show you stuff, you pick one. It wasn't like really any different than anything. I did have a place in South Florida, like I mentioned, so I'm not a first time owner. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that it was really any different than anywhere else. Obviously, like building has its own set of challenges, but I don't think that's country specific either. The one thing I will say is like things like financing is probably out. Um,
Hmm.
Even my realtor told me like 98% of buyers are cash buyers. That's something maybe other people aren't used to, but of course, the costs of places, property, even labor, those things are going to be less here. So I was able to pull it off, but I tried to stay within I tried to stick to like a hard budget and not get seduced by, oh, it's only a little more. I tried not to do that.
Cool. So you must
It's
be
almost like
excited.
your own house. But they had, so there's a lot of red tape and bureaucracy and things like that. So like there's levels of pre-construction. Obviously, like a lot of people are just scared of pre-construction, period, for very logical reasons. But they had already like permitted things, cleared ground. Like a lot of people won't even jump into pre-construction, according to my realtor, until like certain things have happened. Like there
Hmm.
was another pre-construction project that like someone was just like, my family owns this land, and they had been squatting there for like almost a year, she told me. So like you want to be able to get past that part. So like stuff was already built, which like made me feel confident that
Okay,
someone
so they
wouldn't
hit some
just come.
milestones.
Yeah. And then I jumped in with, uh, we went through like rounds and rounds of changes to plans and stuff like that.
Mm,
So I don't, it was, yeah, I guess anomaly is how we'll call this.
awesome. So dream home in Oaxaca. You got the Oaxaca website. You're building a place there. Safe to say it's your favorite state in Mexico?
Yes, for
What
sure.
What do you like
Yeah.
about Oaxaca?
I always tell people that Oaxaca is the Mexico that people imagine Mexico is. It's like colorful buildings. Oaxaca state kind of goes north to south. So there's like the northern part in the mountains. There's definitely like the pueblos and like small town villages. And then if you go all the way down to the coast, beautiful beaches, surfing. Um, it just has everything. It just has like colorful colonial towns. The food, Oaxacan food is known as the best food in Mexico.
Yep.
I sometimes agree with that. Sometimes I like other food better. Just depends on the day. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I've spent about a year in total, maybe more like 10 months total in Oaxaca. I just sort of always keep coming back to Oaxaca. I would say it's my favorite. And yeah, festivals, food, fun, culture, history, ancient ruins, beaches, small towns, giant cactus, mezcal. Um, Oaxaca is probably the Mexico that you are imagining in your head when you think of Mexico, if you've never been.
Yeah, definitely. And Oaxaca is actually huge. Like it's bigger than you think it is.
It's pretty big. Yeah, I guess like if you drove, well, it's just like Oaxaca is also a very poor state. I think one of the, if not the poorest, maybe the second or third. So sometimes it does lack infrastructure a lot. So, like for example, driving from the city, which is in about the center of the state, to the coast, it's like a
Hmm.
I want to say it's a 200-mile actual drive, but it's like a 6-7 hour drive because it's like a windy road through the mountains and all that stuff. So I would think from like top to bottom of state, it's actually a long drive, but like distance wise, maybe it's 800 miles or something like that.
So I just took like a rough size comparison. So Oaxaca is 36,000 square miles, and then the state of Virginia is 42,000 square miles, pretty close. So it's like a sizable state, and it has so
Medium.
much diversity, so much cultural diversity within it. Like every little town is like different, and they have different cultures and celebrations and stuff, right?
Yeah, it's definitely known as like a lot of festivals. They have probably besides Mexico City, like the biggest Day of the Dead festival. There's all kinds of other like weird festivals, like in Oaxaca City, in during Christmas they have the radish festival where it's like just all these like weird radish carvings. Like,
Yeah. Like the
um,
one with pink inside they use for salads and stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then there's the Guelaguetza festival that's in July. So it's definitely like, but honestly, it just feels like every Saturday is a festival because there's like weddings, and then they do like what's called like the calendas, and like they're dancing in the street. Like it just Oaxaca just doesn't stop. It's just festive all the time.
I believe it.
Maybe not on a Tuesday, but like weekends for sure.
Yeah, and I guess the Virginia comparison isn't even like a good one in the sense that Virginia's kind of all the same throughout the state. So it's like there's almost not much to see in some ways. But Oaxaca, like it's probably very distinct the north from the south. Oaxaca City compared to the coast, etc.
Yeah, I would say it's you get a lot for sure.
Have you been to Salina Cruz?
No, we didn't go, but we might have to go to buy our furniture there. But no, we didn't go there. Or the isthmus. Yeah, that's definitely like on the radar.
What's the isthmus?
uh, it's like a strip of land, and it's on the coast, and it's in like on the, I guess that would be the eastern side of the state.
Uh-huh.
And it's just one of, like, they say there's 8 regions of Oaxaca, and that's one of them. So like over there you'll get a lot of mm, like the isthmus food's pretty well known, so it's like a micro cuisine. There's a lot of like seafood stuff, and they just have kind of
Hmm.
their own thing going on.
Hey guys, quick interruption to tell you about Bitrefill. Bitrefill is the best way to convert your crypto into gift card balances. These are gift cards that you can spend at hotels.com, Airbnb, Nike, and many more. You may remember Joel Valenzuela, previous podcast guest. He's been living on crypto exclusively since 2015, and he's a big consumer of Bitrefill. And so I asked Joel, I said, what do you like most about Bitrefill? He said that he likes the instant delivery, the precise amounts so that you don't have to juggle a lot of gift cards, and he loves the global selection. Nobody else has this much selection of gift cards, over 10,000 gift card options across hundreds of countries. Go to bitrefill.com to sign up, and you can also use the code MyLatinLife for 10% back off your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information.
I have a random question. I have a random question. You're not gonna have a good answer, but I'm gonna ask anyway. Did the Acapulco hurricane freak you out? The idea of living in coastal Oaxaca?
I'm from Miami. So
That's the answer to everything.
I do have a good answer to that.
Yeah, I
No,
guess.
that's what I was saying. Like in central Mexico, like I will never get used to the earthquakes. That's what I'll never get used to. Like during, I think it was like a 3.5, according to my phone at the time, earthquake, which is small or smaller. And I was hanging out with a girl that I knew from a friend of a friend from San Francisco at the time of this earthquake. The wall moved a little and I lost my mind. And it was like completely normal to her. And I'm like, it's not normal when the wall moves. And she's like, yeah, no big deal. It was a small move. I'm like, I don't relate to what you just said with the small movement of a wall. But yeah, so like hurricanes are like a part of life for me. Earthquakes are not. So does it freak me out? I mean, hurricanes suck, but it's not like there's somewhere that exists that's like free of natural disasters.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, I guess you can kind of drive inland from Mexico or from the coast of Oaxaca, and you'll be all right. Which made me think, like, do you have a
But there's
car?
earthquakes.
Do you have a car in Mexico?
Not yet. When the house is done, we'll
You're gonna get
definitely
a
have a car.
car.
Yeah, I'm hoping to be able to split my time between either Oaxaca City and the coast or Mexico City and the coast. It depends. One house at a time.
If you had to kind of compare Oaxaca City and the coast, which is probably tough to do, but how would you kind of mention that? Or,
Um,
and I guess kind of the Mexico City versus Oaxaca City, because Oaxaca City is getting really, it's definitely on the like eat, pray, love hippie trail now, right?
I think it is to an extent. It's sort of to me like skews older, so maybe the literal like same age as the author of Eat Pray Love. But I think the true like hippie place for like the 20s and things is probably San Cristobal de las Casas in
Hmm.
Chiapas. Sayulita, I guess, is kind of like that younger. It's like the San Francisco tech village.
Hmm.
Um, Oaxaca City to me skews older. But that could just be my experience. Of course, there's like a whole nightlife thing that I probably didn't insert myself into. But what I tell people about like why I really hope to be able to live half the year on the coast and half the year in a city is because you get peace on the coast and you get culture in the city, and you do not get
Mm.
both like anywhere really. I guess there's a couple coastal cities in the world like Miami, Barcelona, and stuff. Um, but for me, for Mexico, I've spent a lot of time on the coast in a bunch of cities, and a lot of time in cities, and that's the difference between coast to city living for me. Like, do you
Hmm.
want peace and quiet and nature? Of course, you can have that in the mountains of central Mexico as well. You don't have to go all the way, let's say, to the coast. But it's one or the other. I've never been on a beach city in Mexico or beach town in Mexico where it was like the Mexican fiesta, like big festivals, like the amazing food, like kind of
I got to
experience.
go to
So
Mazatlan.
I've never been to Mazatlan. I mean, I can't imagine what I'm looking for is in any of the huge tourist cities, but I have never been to Mazatlan, so yes, I can't say.
Speaking of, so what are your like top hidden gem cities or favorite cities or recommendations for people in Mexico?
Um, I guess there's a bunch of there's really a bunch of them. But I think if it's like your first Mexico trip, I really do think Mexico City is the place to go. You can get to like a million
Mm.
places within a couple hours. The buses are amazing. Like Tepoztlan is a really like cute little town. It's getting a little touristy, but like I mean, what's not? It's hard to have these conversations and not be like, but it's getting a little touristy. Tepoztlan's a cute town. I love Valle de Bravo. They call it the
Hmm.
Hamptons of Mexico City.
I'm really trying to go there. Yeah.
It's a lake town. We've been twice now. I love it. I am absolutely obsessed with Morelia, Michoacan.
Yeah.
Um, Super off the tourist trail. It's on the national tourist trail, but not. I think my boyfriend said he did see one other American person while we were there for a week, but that's pretty rare in Mexico. Sayulita, I went in 2019. I think it's a little different now, but Sayulita was really cute back in the day. I think Zihuatanejo is like the new Sayulita. Now that Sayulita is kind of blown up a bit. Um, I like Puebla, Mexico. I like Puebla as like a smaller scale Mexico City.
Uh huh.
What else do I love? Valladolid and Izamal in the Yucatan
Yeah.
are places that I really
Izamal's the
really
all yellow one,
the
right?
yellow town.
Yeah.
I've been to Izamal a couple times. I really like it there. But those are kind of like day trips that you would take. So it really depends. Like sometimes when you're recommending hidden gems, it's like a weird gray
Is
area.
it a 1 month? Is it to live? Is
Exactly.
it yeah,
Like,
yeah.
are you passing through? Like, what kind of travel are you looking for? Because I mean, popular places are popular for many reasons. There's a million things to do in Mexico City. So whether you're coming for 2 days or 2 months, like it's a safe way for me to recommend somewhere. But I
What do
really
you think?
think it's a great place because of how many things are right within 3 or less hours of the city.
Yeah, we typically say Playa del Carmen in the winter or Mexico City in the summer.
Yeah, it rains in the summer in the city, but you can go to the city at any time of year and it's still amazing.
Hmm.
But yeah, Playa. I haven't been. I lived in Playa in 2018. I haven't been back since. But I hear it's like completely. Like I'd be going for the first time, even though I've been. Like that's just the change that I guess is countrywide at this point.
For sure.
But any beach, any Mexico beach in the winter is the time to go. But the Pacific coast, they have like the whale migration, so
Mm,
it's a really nice time to be on the Pacific coast.
that's cool. Valle
Mhm.
de Bravo, what do you think would be like the right amount of time there? Could you do a month there, or is that too long?
I we were like looking at real estate, but like that's just me and my boyfriend like small places. Um, we spent a week there, and I don't know anyone who spent a week there, and we were like totally fine. But I think like he's Mexican, and I've been in Mexico so long, so the relaxation aspect of that town is kind of what we were after. But like if you're like want to see sights, I want to do like maybe a week might be like tops.
Mm. Yeah, I was listening to a podcast with a guy that like a startup guy that lives there full time. But yeah, somewhere I always wanted to go. Can you swim in that lake?
I read that you can. I did not see anyone swimming in the lake, and we did not swim in the lake. But I read that not pollution wise, but because it's really 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 cold. So
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
yeah, I did not read that it like people don't swim because it's super like dirty water or anything. It's a man-made lake. It's not like a natural lake. It's a reservoir actually technically. But
Mm.
yeah, that's what I read that it's just freezing all the time.
Gotcha. So is the game plan one of your side quests to visit every state in Mexico?
I mean, it's like going to happen. I don't know that I'm that person that's like crossing things off of my bucket list. Um, there's probably states. Well, no, that's not true. There are states that I don't necessarily have super interest in going to, but I probably will eventually. Just like to be like I've been to all of them, but it's
Uh,
not like I'm not in a rush. I could
what's
have
the,
done it by now.
what's on the bottom like Tabasco, Chihuahua?
I want to go to. Well, I want to go to the Tajín ruins in Tabasco. Other
Tajín
than that,
is in Veracruz.
Tajín is in Veracruz.
Yeah, in Tabasco, you might be thinking of La Venta
Oh,
and
Laventa.
San.
You're right.
Yeah,
You're totally right. Yeah, I mean, is it a pass through kind of place? Sure. I do want to go to some of the northern states. I want to go. The Chepe train is one of the bucket list
yeah,
things. So, like, I
yeah,
guess that's Chihuahua and Sonora, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, or is it? Yeah, no, because it goes to Chihuahua and it's
yeah. We
in.
just
Oh
tweeted about
no,
this train like
Sinaloa,
a day ago.
Sinaloa to
It crosses a
Chihuahua.
few. It's
Okay.
it's all right. Yeah, that's cool. And from a travel blogger's perspective, like, do you get discounts on some of this stuff? You're probably at the point where you're getting like free hotels and stuff?
People offer it, but I've never done any sponsored work.
Really?
Yeah, it's just not like it's not for me. But yeah, you can get. I think a lot. Like I spoke at a travel blogging conference a couple of months ago, and like there were people meeting with like the local tourism boards and stuff like that, and
Hmm.
it's essentially like it's a lot of work for like a free stay. Like a lot of people are
Right.
not getting paid for that work, believe it or not. Like you got to be like really, really big time um, to get like serious money when you do a dollars to hours comparison, because like a 2 day stay is really a 4 day trip out of your life because you have to go somewhere and then go back. So it just the dollars to hours never worked out in a way that it was something that I went after. But I just like I said this to someone at the travel blogging conference. I'm like, I wish the goal for so many people wasn't like how do I get a free hotel stay, but like how do I make so much that I pay for my own hotels.
Definitely.
So I sort of was like always just in that mindset. But yes, someone from Tulum like messaged me a couple of days ago about come have a free stay in the hotel, and
It's kind of cool.
it
The
happens. But not doing social media, that actually like a lot of companies wouldn't want to work for me. So like what SEO is, but I would have to educate more people than not about like the benefits of what I do and how a social media post has a lifespan of 2 hours, but like SEO lasts forever. But so
yeah,
yeah, I don't do sponsored work or social
makes
media.
sense.
I don't know what
Do you
I
know
do.
do you know Tim Leffel?
Yeah, I do.
We recorded one with him like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, we were at the same conference that I just mentioned. He's
Oh
the one
yeah.
that invited me to that conference.
Oh, okay. The how to monetize. I forget the name already.
It's
Scale. How to scale.
yeah, no. He works, I don't know if I can say this. He works for a travel blogging conference, the one I just said I was speaking at, that I advise people to make enough money that you pay for your own hotel stays instead of
Yeah.
selling yourself for a free night in a hotel. He invited me to speak at that conference. It's called
Okay.
TBEX.
Cool.
It's the biggest travel blogging conference.
What's the name
T-
again?
TBEX.
T-Bex.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I need to get into this cult a little bit more.
Well, I didn't know I was a cult, but to me, it's a job. But I guess if you ask any cult leader or member, they're like, no, this is just my job.
Hey everybody, hey everybody. Quick break from the podcast to tell you about Language Blend, the best new way to learn Spanish. Language Blend was co-founded by Jake Nomada, friend of the podcast, decade of experience in Latin America, and Jake and his team, they put everything into this program that they wish they had in terms of how to level up quickly with your Spanish language skills. Because the faster that you can get conversationally fluent in Spanish, the better the experience that you're going to have in Latin America. So go to languageblend.com for more information.
See, because I'm on a couple extremes of things. I think a lot of my audience is more they're into like the self sovereignty and getting multiple passports and internationalizing and this kind of thing, which I feel like some of the travel bloggers don't really talk about. It's just more about, I guess, experiences and luxury and kind of things like that. But yeah, we're kind of like my Latin life's like in the middle of like a lot of different crossroads.
Well, I mean, I have that, without necessarily. I mean, I have one passport, but luckily it's a good one, or it's a strong one, let's say. So yeah, I don't know, like, but it was definitely about location independence and time independence
Yeah.
and being my own boss. So I mean, I definitely identify that was like the impetus for it. It was never
Yeah.
like,
Speak to that a bit more.
yeah, I mean, I was like chewed up and spit out by corporate America, which I think is like the pathway here, I guess, for a lot of people. And I was, I had the determination of like something has to work out, or as like they say in the personal development or the business development community, like row to the island and then burn the boat. So like I was like, something's going to work out. I will not go back to having a boss. I will not go back to corporate America. I will not go back to PTO. I don't even ever want to say PTO again. Like all of those things. So actually, I
Right.
started
two
with the
weeks
drop
paid
shipping.
vacation. Oh
I'm,
my
I'm just
God.
not. I just realized like freedom was like one of my core values as like a human, and it was like, what is life if I have to ask someone for permission for the day off? So like for me to live my life, I have to ask you to let me. And like I just had like a crisis, maybe a midlife, quarter life, I don't know. And I just had that kind of fire behind me of like burn the boat. And yeah, I started with a drop shipping store. Um, and then, it just kind of like I was doing okay. And then it was like pandemic, and I don't know. Then I started like networking with other Mexico travelers, in which, because we were all locked in our houses during,
Hmm.
lockdown. And I met a travel blogger, and I was like, is that real? I was the same as most people. Like, how is this real? And then she put me in some Facebook groups. And again, it was just this time in the world where like travelers were grounded. So like people were probably talking to me and conversing with me in ways that they wouldn't have normally been doing in another time. And right off the bat, I met travel bloggers who were still making money during the pandemic.
Even though it did
Uh,
go down a lot.
so, like the people that I met who were making money were making it through the affiliate program of Airbnb. And while people were not traveling, they were booking 2 and 3 month Airbnb stays out in the wilderness. You know,
Mm.
so they were making commissions. They were making more than pre-pandemic. Some of them. So for me, like my introduction to all this was like people making money doing it. It was never like hobby bloggers having a fun time. So for me, I was like, I can do it. Like
You
if they're
needed that
doing it,
money.
if they're, I needed to never go back to corporate America. I never like imagined how big it could get. And I'm only a medium time blogger. Like I'm far from the top of anything. Um, but I'm also only 3.5 years in, and so I feel like the sky's the limit. But that was it. It was like, I'm not going back to what I hate. That seems insane. And at Hello, it was like all these people doing really well, like as travel bloggers during the pandemic. So I just always kind of felt like the sky's the limit, and that's it.
Hmm.
But it
What
was
do you
never
think
like I
the
need a million passport stamps. I was never that travel blogger. In fact, that's how I started the Mexico site, because all these other bloggers were like, I've been to 92 countries. And I was like, well, I haven't, but I've been all over Mexico.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Do what you know. And what do you think's like the future of travel blogging and websites in general, niche sites, SEO sites? Is there a future for these, 300 article websites and that kind of thing, or are things adapting a bit?
There's like a lot of changes right now, actually, as we're recording. Google's done some big updates on how they rank sites. And 2023 has been a big year for that. I think normally they do maybe 3 updates a year. And I think in the last 4 months, they've done 6. There's 2 going
Mm,
on as we're recording this.
wow.
So, what is the future? That is a really great question. And I wish I knew. I mean, I probably wish I knew anyway. But I'm taking cues from people who have been blogging a lot longer than me, and they're like, these shakeups happen, and then
It's
the
because
dust
of AI, I
settles.
guess, right? Because ChatGPT.
That's exactly it. Because
They're trying to
someone
fight
can
that.
literally program, someone with the knowledge can program. They can program a site. So they're pulling stock images, they're pulling GPT
Yeah.
content,
Yeah.
but they're doing it in a way that they know satisfies like the Google gods and the algorithms and stuff, which is essentially what bloggers did. It's just they're doing it at speeds that
Yeah.
even Google's overwhelmed. So there's a lot of shakeups, but I'm pretty confident like these things come in cycles. And I mean, I'm not giving up blogging or anything like that, but we'll see what happens.
So you
But
have a
I
team
mean,
of writers, I believe I heard,
I have a
and so
team.
you're still investing in your team and investing in new content, new articles.
I have been on a rhythm of like this time of year. It's more about updating old content. And then, because I tell people, I work with clients one on one, and I tell people like it's one thing to get to the top of Google, it's another thing to stay there. So
Mm,
it's not necessarily a one and done. You have to like optimize, and I have to be aware of like who's on my tail, catching up in the rankings and things like that. So this part of the year for me is always doing that. But yeah, of course, like, and I'm actually going to be learning AI in 2024. I ignored it for so long, but you have to embrace and kind of iterate yourself with the times, and that's it. But I literally have never used AI on any of my sites. I have human people that work for me,
that's
and
good. That's
it
good.
is.
I actually do need to get running, but
Mhm.
I want to ask one kind of random question, which is when you think about your how you're monetizing your sites. We talked a bit about the ads in the beginning. And then you've talked in the past about how kind of booking.com, hotels.com is a big one, and that rental cars is a big one. And so do you kind of try to stick to those big 2 or 3, or are you quite disparate in terms of your site is just peppered with tons of random affiliate links? And the trouble with that is you kind of have to log in to a bunch of places and kind of like keep track of it. So do you just like focus on like 2 or 3 top ones, or is it really just like a little bit from everywhere, or?
Well, the way I explain it to my coaching clients is that there are certain things that every traveler needs, right? Like rental cars, tours, hotels, hostels, whatever, physical products like luggage, things like that. And then I like to say that there's one other thing that everyone's site has differently. So, like as a Mexico site, I have different considerations than someone with, say, like a Norway site, where they might go heavy on like buy this like big huge jacket or things like that. whatever, like I've never been to Norway, so whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But it's, like I always try not to reinvent the wheel, and there's just certain things that travelers need. And beyond that, there's probably one thing beyond the big things that is relates to you specifically and your site. And then beyond that, like, no, I actually am not in many programs at all. I stick to what is tried and true. I
Mm,
don't necessarily do like side deal kind of things with other people. I just use what's already set up, what's already in place, what already I know works. And
mm.
that's worked for me for sure.
Fascinating. Okay, so where can people? Well, of course, they'll check out their sites, and if we didn't get a chance to get too much into it, but if people want to maybe become a one-on-one client of yours, how would they do that?
Well, that's a longer process. But way before that, you can just go to Travel Blogging 101, and I have a lot of introductory stuff on there. I actually have like if you have a blog and you're looking into affiliate marketing, I have like a free video course download. So the first thing you'll see on the site of the programs I recommend joining, why I recommend joining them. Um, and yeah, from there I keep my social media too. I have a student Facebook group, but it's private. But that freebie will put you in the email list if you need to get in touch with me.
Okay, awesome. Well, Shelby, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. It was really interesting to hear your experience and to connect, basically. So we'll have all the links in the show notes for your websites. And yeah, any final words for the audience?
Oh, final words. I don't know we talked about so many things. Um, I don't know. Anyone else in my situation, chewed up and spit out by corporate America, especially US corporate America, I wish you everything in the world to make your dreams happen. And what I do always tell people is that if I can, you can.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think your story was really relatable, and you're thriving in Mexico, and you haven't moved back yet, so that's a good sign.
No.
Cool. So this has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Again, my guest today, Shelley Marmor from Travel Mexico Solo, Travel Blogging 101, and much more. Thanks everyone for listening.